Di Momra anzittu surudu. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عما يتساءلون عن النبأ العظيم الذي هم فيه مختلفون. كلا سيعلمون ثم كلا سيعلمون. ألم نجعل الأرض مهادا والجبال أوتادا وخلقناكم أزواجا وجعلنا نومكم سباتا وجعلنا الليل لباسا وجعلنا النهار معاشا وبنينا فوقكم سبعا شدادا وجعلنا سراجا وهاجا وأنزلنا من المعصرات ماء ثجاجا لنخرج به حبا ونباتا وجنات ألفافا إن يوم الفصل كان ميقاتا يوم ينفخ في الصور فتأتون أفواجا وفتحت السماء فكانت أبوابا وسيرت الجبال فكانت سرابا إن جهنم كانت مرصادا للطاغين مآبا لابثين فيها أحقابا لا يذوقون فيها بردا ولا شرابا إلا حميما وغساقا جزاء وفاقا إنهم كانوا لا يرجون حسابا وكذبوا بآياتنا كذابا وكل شيء أحصيناه كتابا فذوقوا فلن نزيدكم إلا عذابا إن للمتقين مفازا حدائق وأعنابا وكواعب أترابا وكأسا دهاقا لا يسمعون فيها لغوا ولا كذابا جزاء من ربك عطاء حسابا رب السماوات والأرض وما بينهما الرحمن لا يملكون منه خطابا يوم يقوم الروح والملائكة صفا لا يتكلمون إلا من أذن له الرحمن وقال صوابا ذلك اليوم الحق فمن شاء اتخذ إلى ربه مآبا إنا أنذرناكم عذابا قريبا يوم ينظر المرء ما قدمت يداه ويقول الكافر يا ليتني كنت ترابا.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Today we're going to speak about a very important sickness. And just like any sickness, it has its symptoms, it has its causes, and it has its remedies. It has its cures. But we won't be speaking about diabetes or cancer or anything like that. We're actually going to be speaking about something that is far, far worse. And that is the disease of the heart. The disease of the heart. When the heart hardens, there is nothing that is more damaging to a person than the effects of a heart that has been hardened. It cannot benefit from any reminder. It cannot benefit from any warning that comes from Allah. It does not benefit from the revelation. And it does not heed the guidance that Allah Azza wa Jal gives to us. So this, in reality, is a sickness whose effects last until the day of judgment and beyond that. Someone may be affected by cancer, may Allah protect us, by heart disease, other heart disease, by diabetes, by you name it, any kind of thing. But this person has faith in Allah Azza wa Jal, the end of their sickness will come. And if they don't find cure in this world, then their cure will come with death itself. And Allah Azza wa Jal, inshallah, after that will bring them hope. But the effect of the heart that is diseased and the heart that has hardened, it does not become cured in the hereafter. The effects of the heart that is hardened continue to impact that person for eternity. So I think many of us are familiar with the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ in which he says, أَلَا وَإِنَّ فِي الْجَسَدِ مُضْغَةً أَلَا وَإِنَّ فِي الْجَسَدِ مُضْغَةً إِذَا صَلَحَتْ صَلَحَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ وَإِذَا فَسَدَتْ فَسَدَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ أَلَا وَهِيَ الْقَلْبُ. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, indeed, in the body there is a morsel of flesh. If this morsel of flesh is sound, then the entirety of the body is sound. And if it is corrupted, then the entirety of the body is corrupted. And he says, indeed, it is the heart. Indeed, it is the heart. This expression that you may have heard in the past is actually the end of a longer hadith that I think many of us are also familiar with, where the Prophet ﷺ actually begins it by speaking about the boundaries of Allah. He says, إِنَّ الْحَلَالَ بَيِّنٌ وَإِنَّ الْحَرَامَ بَيِّنٌ وَبَيْنَهُمَا أُمُورٌ مُشْتَبِهَاتٌ لَا يَعْلَمُهُنَّ كَثِيرٌ مِنَ النَّاسِ. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, indeed that which is permissible is clear, and that which is impermissible is clear. But between those two are doubtful matters. They are those things that are not as clear. لَا يَعْلَمُهُنَّ كَثِيرٌ مِنَ النَّاسِ. Not many people know them. You can think of them as your yellow lights. Your yellow lights. When it's green, it's clear. When it's red, it's clear. But that yellow, whether you can cross it or not, sometimes depending on your distance away from it, you might cross it and be okay, but other times you might cross it and actually end up in the red. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, فَمِنِ اتَّقَى الشُّبُهَاتِ فَقَدْ اسْتَبْرَأَ لِدِينِهِ وَعِرْضِهِ. Whomsoever stays away from these doubtful matters, that gray area in the middle, then they have absolved themselves. They have removed fault from themselves with regards to their honor. They have protected their honor and they have protected their religion. وَمَنْ وَقَعَ فِي الشُّبُهَاتِ وَقَعَ فِي الْحَرَامِ. And whomsoever ends up in the doubtful matters, without exception, will end up in the haram. Whoever makes it a habit that when they see yellow, no matter what, they cross the yellow, will they end up hitting the red? 100%. I don't know how many times, just today we may have done this. But when you become accustomed to running through yellow, you always, at one point or another, will end up crossing the red. This is what the Prophet ﷺ tells us. If you accustom yourself to living in, some of us, we live in the gray. There is no there is no halal or haram. It's like everything is just the gray. Then he says, كالراعي يرعى حول الحمى يوشك أن يرتع فيه. As the shepherd, when he brings his flock to the pasture to graze, if he comes too close to the border of that pasture, and he brings his flock very close to that, eventually they are going to go into the territory that is not allowed for them. They're going to go into that sanctified territory, that sanctuary that they're not supposed to pass. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he says, ألا وإن لكل ملك حمى. Indeed, every king has a sanctuary, a place of land you are not allowed to enter. ألا وإن حمى الله محارمه. And indeed, that sanctuary of space that is forbidden from you to enter is those things which Allah Azza wa Jal has made forbidden. And Allah is the King of Kings. So the sanctuary of Allah, where He has forbidden us to go, is those things which He has made impermissible upon us. And then the Prophet ﷺ tells us that indeed there is a morsel of flesh in the body. If it is sound, then the entirety of the body is sound. And if it is corrupted, then the entirety of the body is corrupted. So what we're learning here is that the soundness of the heart is related to our observance of the boundaries of Allah. The state of our heart is related to our observance of the boundaries of Allah. When we stay where Allah Azza wa Jal wants us to stay and do not cross over to that is a sign that our heart is whole. And if we continue to cross over those boundaries and not observe the limits that Allah Azza wa Jal has placed on us, then this is a sign of the corruptedness, the unhealthiness of the heart. And the whole matter in the religion revolves around this. Our heart being sound, our heart being healthy. Allah Azza wa Jal, He mentions the Prophet ﷺ, he mentions, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَنْظُرُ إِلَى صُوَرِكُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَنْظُرُ إِلَى صُوَرِكُمْ وَلَا إِلَى أَمْوَالِكُمْ. Allah Azza wa Jal does not look at your forms or your figures. He doesn't look at what you look like. Nor does He look at your wealth. وَلَكِنْ يَنْظُرُ إِلَى قُلُوبِكُمْ وَأَعْمَالِكُمْ. But rather, Allah Azza wa Jal, He looks at your hearts and your deeds. He looks at your hearts and your deeds. So the whole matter is about coming to Allah with a sound heart. إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. The people who will be okay on the Day of Judgment are those who come to Allah with a sound heart. So this disease of the heart, the disease of the heart is known as qaswatul qalb. When the heart becomes hard. When the heart becomes hard. And so some of the symptoms where we can self-diagnose ourselves and ask ourselves, is this something that I am impacted by? We'll go over a few of those symptoms. The first that I want to mention is apathy. What apathy refers to is that whether something goes this way or that way, whether something is right or wrong, you feel nothing. You take no stance. You feel as though it doesn't concern you, whether something is right or something is wrong. Or you don't feel impacted at all by sinning. It's not something that bothers you in any way. That voice that you have in the back of your mind, that's constantly nagging at you. Why am I doing this wrong? Why am I doing this wrong? Some people think the way that they escape that nagging voice, that conscience that they have, is by just denouncing Islam, or renouncing Islam rather. They say, if I'm no longer responsible for anything, then this voice will go away. But this is a false sense of comfort. This is a sense of comfort that comes just by ignoring the reality of things. And wallahi, that voice that is keeping you up at night, that voice that is robbing you of some of your comfort, is a mercy from Allah Azza wa Jal. The fact that Allah Azza wa Jal still places hesitation in our hearts, still places those guilty feelings in our heart, for when we do something wrong is actually a clear sign that the heart is still alive, that the heart still has a pulse. Because the moment people feel nothing when it comes to disobeying Allah Azza wa Jal, because this is the purpose of our existence here, that we fulfill the commandments of Allah. The moment we feel nothing with regards to that, there is no pulse in the heart. There is no pulse in the heart. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, "Man sarrathu hasanatuh, wa sa'athu sayyi'atuh, fadhalikum al-mu'min." The one who is pleased when they do good, that's they feel happiness in that fact that they are doing something good, and they are displeased. It saddens them when they commit some kind of disobedience. فَذَلِكُمُ الْمُؤْمِنُ. That is the believer. That is the believer. The one who feels good by doing the good actions, is pleased by that, and still feels something when they do something wrong. The moment you feel nothing when you've done something wrong is the moment when you say something is going wrong. And usually that doesn't happen right away. Things like that are the product of a journey down the wrong road. So it's important for us to become aware of what are these things that used to bother me in the past when I did them, but suddenly they don't bother me anymore. When I used to not pray on time, it used to bother me. And then after a while, it becomes, when I skip one prayer, it used to bother me. When I skip one day of prayer, that used to bother me. Then it becomes 1 week of prayer. Then it becomes, I haven't gone to Jummah in 3 months. Then it becomes, and it continues like this. It's not like you wake up one day and say, I don't care about disobeying Allah Azza wa Jal. I've been doing all my obligations, but now I don't care anymore. These kinds of things are the products of a journey down the wrong path. So it's important for us to diagnose ourselves early. Early prevention is key, right? Another sign of the hardness of the heart, brothers and sisters, is when we plan sins in advance. When we plan sins in advance. Why are we wording it in this way? It is one thing when you find yourself in front of temptation. You're in a situation you didn't think it was going to lead in this way or another, it becomes a slippery slope, and then you stand face to face with temptation. It's understandable that there will be many people that slip and fall when temptation comes that close to them. But there is a key difference when someone is planning disobedience far in advance. Because what that means is, even when the seduction of temptation is not right there, is not that present, it means that even that far in advance, when the thing that you want to do is so far ahead in advance that you're still planning it. You're so far away from the temptation, but you're still taking all of these steps so far in advance to plan it. You know that your friends are going to go on some trip, they're going to do haram in that trip, and you know all of the bad things that are going to happen, and you're still making the plans with them. You're still booking the hotel room, still booking the flight, doing all of these things, and it's much ahead in advance. There will be many sinful things that are done there, and the temptation becomes evident, right? But there's a key distinction between someone who has lost the sensitivity of the heart so much that even when sin is not right in front of them, even when they don't taste the temptation and it's not close, that they're still willing to undergo those plans and make those plans for disobedience. Another symptom of a hardened heart is when we do not benefit from advice. When we do not benefit from advice. To come to Jum'ah after Jum'ah, or to hear the ayat of Allah Azza wa Jal, or to constantly be reminded of these things, whether it be life events, the death of a close person, whether you be rescued from a car accident, whether you get ni'mah after ni'mah after ni'mah, all of these kinds of things, to not recognize the blessings of Allah, to not recognize it when someone is coming to you with a good word to benefit from, this is a sign that the heart is hardening. When the recommendations from the doctor keep on coming, and you're not willing to do anything with them, it means the disease is going to progress to a state that is going to harden it even more. Another symptom of a hard heart, brothers and sisters, is when we find ourselves making sin into a habit. Making it into a habit. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, كُلُّ بَنِي آدَمْ خَطَّاء. كُلُّ بَنِي آدَمْ خَطَّاء. That every single person from the sons of Adam are going to make mistakes. They're going to sin. وَخَيْرُ الْخَطَّائِينَ التَّوَّابُونَ. And the best of those who make mistakes are those who make tawbah to Allah, who return back to Allah Azza wa Jal after they've sinned. So we will fall into sin. But when sin becomes as predictable as your morning coffee, when sin becomes as predictable as, a regular part of your day, then this means that we've done something very serious in our lives. That we've incorporated things that are displeasing to Allah Azza wa Jal and built our lives around them. There's an expression the ulama say is لا كبيرة مع الاستغفار. That there is no such thing as a big sin if a person pairs a big sin with seeking forgiveness of Allah. You've done a big sin, you turn to Allah Azza wa Jal, ask forgiveness of Him, Allah Azza wa Jal will wipe away that big sin. But they also say, وَلَا كَبِيرَةَ مَعَ الْإِصْرَارِ. لَا كَبِيرَةَ مَعَ الْإِصْرَارِ. And there is no such thing as, وَلَا صَغِيرَةَ مَعَ الْإِصْرَارِ. And there is no such thing as a small sin if a person continues to repeat it. If a person continues to repeat a sin, it no longer remains that minor sin. It means it's becoming something that is engulfing us. It's becoming something that is being so embedded within our lifestyle as a person that it's taking over us. And if something that is a sin is becoming a normal part of our lives, that means there's something there, that our heart has been hardened such that we no longer feel impacted by that sin. It's become a habit. You get desensitized to it over time. The same way you take your morning coffee in the morning, after a while it's as though the caffeine doesn't even do anything to you anymore. In the same way, when you become exposed to sin on a regular basis and then incorporate it into your lifestyle, it no longer affects you in the same way. So some of the causes, we spoke about some of the symptoms, and there are plenty of symptoms that we can look towards. The point of reflecting on some of the symptoms is that every single person amongst us work on diagnosing themselves, work on holding themselves accountable, right? حَاسِبُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ قَبْلَ أَن تُحَاسَبُوا. That every day take yourself into account. Every single day take yourself into account before a day comes in which you will be taken into account. So those were some symptoms, and there's plenty more, but we'll jump to some causes of a hardened heart. Sometimes a hard heart comes as a result of continued disobedience to Allah, and it comes as a punishment. The result of continuously disobeying Allah Azza wa Jal is that He punishes you with a hard heart. Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, ثُمَّ قَسَتْ قُلُوبُكُم مِّن بَعْدِ ذَلِكَ فَهِيَ كَالْحِجَارَةِ أَوْ أَشَدُّ قَسْوَةً وَإِنَّ مِنَ الْحِجَارَةِ لَمَا يَتَفَجَّرُ مِنْهُ الْأَنْهَارُ وَإِنَّ مِنْهَا لَمَا يَشَّقَّقُ فَيَخْرُجُ مِنْهُ الْمَاءُ وَإِنَّ مِنْهَا لَمَا يَهْبِطُ مِنْ خَشْيَةِ اللَّهِ وَمَا اللَّهُ بِغَافِلٍ عَمَّا تَعْمَلُونَ. When Banu Israel continue to disobey Allah Azza wa Jal, Allah Azza wa Jal says that that their hearts hardened after that. As a result of continuously disobeying Allah, what happened is that their hearts became hardened. Allah Azza wa Jal, He also says, فَبِمَا نَقْضِهِمْ مِيثَاقَهُمْ لَعَنَّاهُمْ وَجَعَلْنَا قُلُوبَهُمْ قَاسِيَةً. By virtue of the fact that they violated the covenant that they took with Allah. لَعَنَّاهُمْ. Allah Azza wa Jal says He cursed them. And what cursing is that Allah places a distance between you and His mercy. Al-la'na al-bu'du an rahmatillah. So Allah Azza wa Jal, la'annahum, like He placed them far away from His mercy. وَجَعَلْنَا قُلُوبَهُمْ قَاسِيَةً. And we made their hearts hard. Why did this happen? فَبِمَا نَقْضِهِمْ مِيثَاقَهُمْ. The fact that they violated that covenant that they had taken with Allah Azza wa Jalla. Other causes of a hardened heart is constantly being surrounded by bad company. Constantly being surrounded by bad company. When we find ourselves around the people that, they remind you to pray, the kinds of people that dhikr is what keeps their tongue moist. It's not constant complaining. It's not constant reveling in the dunya. It's these constant reminders, inshallah, we're going to do this, alhamdulillah, this happened, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. This kind of company, it affects a person. And similarly, negative company affects a person as well. The company that we keep, it either contributes to having a healthy heart or it contributes to hardening our heart. Another cause of a hardened heart, brothers and sisters, is that we continue to see things that are wrong in front of us, and we neither do anything to change it or anything to speak against it. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, مَنْ رَأَى مِنْكُمْ مُنْكَرًا فَلْيُغَيِّرْهُ بِيَدِهِ. Whomsoever amongst you sees some kind of munkar, some kind of indecency, some kind of immorality, then if they have the capacity to change it physically with their hands, then they should do so. فَإِنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِلِسَانِهِ. If a person is not able to do that, then let him at least speak out against it. There's some kind of indecency, at least speak out against it. فَإِنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِقَلْبِهِ. And if a person is not even able to change it with his hands, not able to speak against it, then let him at least detest that thing. Let him at least hate it in his heart. That is the least thing that a person can do. And the Prophet ﷺ, he says, وَذَلِكَ أَضْعَفُ الْإِيمَانِ. And that is the weakest level of faith. The weakest level of faith is that you witness immorality and you still feel in your heart that I hate this kind of immorality. This is wrong. That you still feel feel disgusted by that immorality. But the moment all of that fades away, then what is left? If feeling that hate in your heart is the lowest level of faith, then when you no longer even feel that sense of disgust when you see immorality or indecency, then what level of faith can be there? So I know we have become very accustomed and very conditioned to seeing a lot of immorality around us, and it grows even more and more every single day. And the more that becomes something that we become desensitized to, the more it becomes something that hardens our heart. And that desensitization, a lot of the time, that happens through social media. Because social media, it offers us an unprecedented window into seeing all sorts of immorality. To the extent of which that we've never been able, that humanity has not witnessed the same amount of immorality so readily accessible to them as in today's day and age. So constantly exposing yourself to these things is going to be the kind of thing that hardens the heart. Another cause of hardening of the heart, brothers and sisters, is abandoning the Quran. Abandoning the Quran. Allah Azza wa Jal, He refers to the Quran as shifa. The Quran is literally the cure. It is the cure. Your doctor has diagnosed you with X disease. And he is telling you this one medication, it will fix your disease. You've been diagnosed with an infection, take this antibiotic and it will rid you of your disease. And you say no. And you continue to wonder why the disease doesn't go away. Allah Azza wa Jal literally refers to the Quran as shifa. وَشِفَاءٌ لِمَا فِي الصُّدُورِ. It literally comes as a cure for that which is in the chest. So if you continue to not take the medication that's been prescribed by Allah Azza wa Jal, then there is no cure that you will find. There's no cure like the cure of the Quran. It is the most ultimate cure that we can have. So, lastly, I want to say that sometimes, brothers and sisters, Allah Azza wa Jal, He gives us certain calamities that fall on us. And one of the points of the calamities and the tests and the trials that Allah Azza wa Jal sends our way is that they are meant to humble us. They are meant to humble us. Uh, when you when you find that you've enjoyed some kind of ni'mah for a long time and then you become deprived of it, it's something that should remind you that Allah Azza wa Jal was the one that first gave me this ni'mah, and He's the one who took it away. So Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, when the punishment of Allah comes, or when you're going through some kind of difficulty, why isn't it that you turn back to Allah? He says, فَلَوْلَا إِذْ جَاءَهُمْ بَأْسُنَا تَضَرَّعُوا. Why is it that when Allah Azza wa Jal afflicts you with some kind of punishment, with some kind of thing that you're going through, with some kind of calamity, فَلَوْلَا إِذْ جَاءَهُمْ بَأْسُنَا تَضَرَّعُوا. Why was it not the case when our punishment came to them, they did not become humble? They did not become humble. And when a person doesn't become humbled by the test that Allah Azza wa Jal gives us, the result of that is a hardening of the heart. فَلَوْلَا إِذْ جَاءَهُمْ بَأْسُنَا تَضَرَّعُوا وَلَكِنْ قَسَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ. But what happened instead of being humbled by the calamity that Allah Azza wa Jal afflicts you with, the hearts became hardened. So every single time that we go through some kind of calamity, it's actually an opportunity. Saying, how can I draw closer to Allah Azza wa Jal by virtue of this calamity? How do I come closer to Allah? So that is the most important thing that we can take from anything that befalls us. The state of our heart, brothers and sisters, is the most important thing that we can look after. It is so important. The Prophet ﷺ was known to make this dua most prolifically. Aisha radiallahu anha says that the dua the Prophet ﷺ would make the most is that, "O Allah, you are the one who turns the hearts, so make my heart firm upon your religion. Allahumma ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qulubana ala dinik." O Allah, you are the one who turns the hearts, so make our hearts firm upon your religion. So this is a dua that we should be making very constantly and be teaching our children to make as well, because it teaches us not to take the current state of our iman for granted. If you take it for granted, then you allow yourself to slip. So inshallah, this is a reminder to myself and all of us that this is the disease to be worried about. Is more damaging than COVID or cancer or diabetes or physical heart disease. This is the disease that we need to all be taking precautions from. هذا والله أعلم وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. I've been told they prepared especially delicious food for all of you today. Alhamdulillah. There's no permission needed to go to the food.